The grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria glittered under 1,000 tiny lights, each one reflected in polished marble and gilded mirrors. The space smelled of fresh roses and money, a scent Ethan Shaw had come to recognize in every boardroom. He entered. He stood near the center of it all, tuxedo tailored to perfection, practicing the vows he had written only that morning. Caroline, his soon-to-be wife, had insisted on a traditional ceremony. Her family expected it. And so did the press, eager to capture every perfect moment of the union between the tech world's most eligible billionaire and the daughter of a real estate dynasty. But even as Ethan mouthed the carefully rehearsed promises, his mind drifted. He tried to focus on Caroline's smile, her soft, practiced laugh that soothed boardroom tension and charmed every investor. But it was not Caroline who haunted him, it was Lily. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. He had not spoken her name in 3 years, had not dared to let it slip into conversation, not even in the privacy of his own thoughts. But tonight, on the eve of his wedding, her memory pressed against his chest like a knife. He saw her face in the mirror, overlaying Caroline's image. Her laughter, her tears, the way she used to run her fingers through his hair when he could not sleep. And then the final unbearable image, Lily, her eyes wide with shock, telling him she was pregnant. His hands trembled as he adjusted his cufflinks. That night had come back in a flood, his father's cold voice echoing in his mind, warning him about legacy, reputation, and the burden of mistakes. The way Ethan had left her standing in the rain, too cowardly to face the consequences. "Mr. Shaw?" a voice called softly. Ethan turned. The wedding planner hovered nearby, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp. "Is everything ready for tomorrow?" he asked, his voice steady but distant. "Yes, sir," she said, her tone efficient. "The guests will arrive at noon. Caroline's father has arranged extra security, given your high profile." "Of course," Ethan said, though he hardly heard her. She moved away, leaving Ethan alone again with his thoughts. He closed his eyes. 3 years. 3 years of burying that night, of pretending the decision to leave Lily had been the right one. The media had eaten up the sanitized version of his success. Rags to riches, the billionaire genius. But none of them knew about the guilt that ate at him. He opened his eyes, forcing the image of Lily away. Tomorrow he would marry Caroline. Tomorrow he would bury the past for good. Yet as he stared at his reflection in the ballroom's grand mirror, something dark stirred in his gut. A question he had never asked. What if the past refused to stay buried? Outside, thunder rumbled low, a storm brewing somewhere beyond the city's lights. Ethan turned away from the mirror, his pulse quickening. He had no idea that tomorrow, the past he had tried so hard to forget would walk back into his life, and nothing would ever be the same again. The night air smelled like rain and regret. Ethan remembered standing outside Lily's tiny apartment in Brooklyn, his phone vibrating with urgent messages from his father, demanding he come home and fix this mess. The weight of legacy and family expectation pressed on him like an iron chain. He had driven straight from a board meeting, his first big investor pitch. The presentation had gone well. People had clapped. But his hands trembled as he parked and climbed the stairs to her door. Lily had opened it wearing his old college sweatshirt, her hair tied up, eyes shining. The smell of paint lingered in the air, her latest canvas drying in the corner. She always smelled of turpentine and hope. "Ethan," she breathed, a soft smile forming. "I have something to tell you." She took his hands, warm and small, in his own. Her gaze radiated a fragile joy that terrified him. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, eyes glistening. The world seemed to tilt. Pregnant. Pregnant. The word echoed like a scream inside his skull. His father's voice boomed in his mind. A baby now would ruin everything. "You're building an empire, Ethan. No distractions, no weakness." Lily's smile faltered as she read his silence. "Ethan, say something." But he could not. He saw the future he'd been working toward unraveling, A carefully calculated empire with no room for mistakes, no space for vulnerability. Every move he had made, every sleepless night coding in that cramped apartment, every pitch deck, everything was on the line. He felt a tear sliding down her cheek. "Please, say something," she repeated, her voice cracking. He swallowed, but words stuck in his throat. "Lily," he finally forced out, his voice low and broken. I can't. Not now." Her eyes widened. Confusion, then hurt. "What do you mean? You can't?" she demanded, voice trembling. "Ethan, this is our baby. We can make this work." But the pressure in his head was deafening. He saw his father's shadow standing behind him. Shaw. This would destroy everything. He stepped back. "I'm sorry," he whispered, unable to meet her eyes. She reached for him, but he turned, fled down the steps, the rain beginning to fall in thin, icy needles. He did not look back. That night he drove aimlessly through the city, his mind a battlefield of guilt and fear. Lily's face, tear-streaked, disbelieving, haunted him. He told himself he had done the right thing, that one day she would understand. But weeks turned into months, and Lily vanished from his world. Her phone disconnected, her social media silent. Friends said she had packed up and disappeared, leaving only an empty apartment and a broken lease. Ethan buried himself in work. Every new contract, every dollar earned, became another brick in the wall he built around the memory of her. He convinced himself it was for the best, yet sometimes, late at night in the cold silence of his penthouse, he heard her voice whispering his name, felt her tears soaking his hands. And every time he forced the memory down into the darkness where no one could see. But darkness has a way of finding its way back. As the rain splattered against his windshield that night, Ethan realized he had traded love for ambition, and the cost was a secret that refused to stay buried. Ethan adjusted his tie for the third time, forcing a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. The Waldorf's grand ballroom buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, a sea of well-wishers eager to toast the perfect couple. Every corner of the room shimmered with excess, towering floral arrangements, crystal chandeliers catching the light like falling stars. But Ethan's gaze kept drifting to the shadows near the entrance. He tried to push the unease away, focusing on Caroline's bright laughter as she charmed their guests. She looked radiant tonight, every inch the socialite princess she had been groomed to be. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He had never told her the whole truth about his past. A waiter passed by with a tray of champagne. Ethan took a glass, its bubbles fizzing like the anxiety bubbling in his gut. He turned and saw her. At first he thought it was a trick of the light. A dark-haired woman in a simple black dress, posture tense, eyes scanning the room as though she were searching for an exit. But then she shifted and her profile became unmistakable. Lily. Her hair was shorter, darker than he remembered, her face a little sharper, but her eyes, those green eyes that once made him believe in something better, still held the same quiet fire. Shock hit him like a freight train. His breath caught, heart hammering so loud he barely heard the music. And then he saw the child, a boy, no older than 3, holding her hand. The child's hair was the same shade of chestnut brown Ethan saw in the mirror every morning. The resemblance was undeniable. The boy glanced up at Lily, eyes wide, a mirror of her caution. Ethan's world tilted. The glass in his hand trembled. He tried to step forward, but his feet felt like lead. Lily's eyes darted around the room, landing on him. For a moment, time folded in on itself. Everything, the guests, the music, the lights, faded. It was just them. Bound by a past neither had ever truly escaped. Her lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but then her jaw clenched. She turned away, pulling the child close, slipping into the crowd as though she were just another guest. "Ethan?" Caroline's voice sliced through the fog. She was at his side, her hand slipping into his. "Are you okay? You look pale." He blinked, forcing a smile. "I'm fine. he lied. But the lie tasted bitter. Caroline's eyes sparkled, oblivious. Come on, they're about to announce the cake. She tugged him toward the center of the room, where a 7-tiered masterpiece waited to be cut. The crowd pressed in, their laughter filling the space that moments ago had felt so empty. But Ethan's mind was somewhere else. He could still see Lily's face in the shadows, the child's wide eyes. He had buried the past, or so he thought. Now, it had returned, unexpected, undeniable, and holding his son's hand. He realized in that moment that his perfect wedding was about to become the most terrifying reckoning of his life. Ethan's mind felt like a house of cards collapsing in slow motion. The ballroom blurred around him, waiters gliding by with silver trays, guests laughing too loud. But all he could see was Lily's face as she turned away, the small child clinging to her side like a living question mark. He tried to follow her, but Caroline's laughter snagged his arm, pulling him back into the swirl of congratulations and clinking glasses. Her smile sparkled like a diamond, brilliant, sharp, impossible to ignore. "Ethan, are you even listening?" she asked, her voice light but edged with confusion. He blinked, forcing a smile. "Sorry. Long day." She squeezed his hand, unaware of the tremor in his voice. "I know you're nervous. Big day tomorrow." Her eyes searched his face for reassurance. He gave her a nod, though his stomach twisted. Caroline's father approached, beaming, hand extended. "My boy, everything is perfect. You've outdone yourself." Ethan shook his hand, mind still reeling. His eyes drifted to the shadows near the exit. Lily stood half hidden behind a pillar, the boy at her side. Her gaze burned into him, a quiet, searing accusation he could not escape. He tore his eyes away, but the guilt clung to him like smoke. Later, as the orchestra played a soft waltz, Ethan finally slipped away, weaving through the guests like a ghost. He found Lily standing near a dimly lit corner, the boy now dozing against her shoulder. "Lily," he breathed, voice breaking. She stiffened but did not look at him. "Go back to your party, Ethan. This isn't your world anymore." "Please," he whispered. "I need to talk to you. About him." She turned then, her eyes sharp as shattered glass. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice 3 years ago." He swallowed, heart pounding. "Is he?" She cut him off, voice low but lethal. "Don't you dare ask. Not now, not after everything." Her eyes flickered to the sleeping boy, then back to Ethan. "He's safe. That's all you need to know." Her words carved through him. Guilt and anger roiled beneath his skin. "Lily, No," she said, steel in her voice. "You lost the right to Lily, the day you walked out on us." Before he could respond, Caroline's laughter drifted into the corridor, bright and oblivious. Lily's eyes followed the sound, then settled back on Ethan with a cold finality. "Go back to your bride," she whispered. "Play your part. I'm done playing mine." She turned, the child's small arms wrapped tightly around her neck, his head resting on her shoulder. As she disappeared into the crowd, Ethan felt something inside him crack. He wanted to call after her, to beg forgiveness, to demand answers. But the words died in his throat. A sudden hush fell over the ballroom as the orchestra stopped. Caroline appeared at his side, her face glowing. "There you are," she said, slipping her arm through his. "I've been looking for you." Ethan forced a smile, but his mind was on Lily's eyes. Eyes that knew the truth, eyes that held the power to unravel everything. He realized in that moment that tomorrow's wedding was no longer the celebration he had planned. It was a powder keg waiting to explode. The hallway outside the ballroom smelled of roses and candle wax, a stark contrast to the cold sweat soaking Ethan's shirt. The music had faded into a soft hum, muffled by the thick wooden doors. But his pulse roared in his ears, each beat a drum of guilt and panic. He had seen Lily slip away through the side door, her child's head resting sleepily on her shoulder. Ethan moved before he could stop himself, drawn by a force he couldn't name. He found her in a quiet corridor near the kitchen, under a single flickering light. The shadows curved around her like armor, but her eyes glistened with defiance as she turned to face him. "Lily," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. "Please just listen." She shifted the child to her other arm, her posture tense, every muscle on edge. "What do you want, Ethan? Haven't you done enough?" He stared at the boy, small, delicate features, chestnut hair that mirrored his own. The sight stole his breath. "Is he?" Lily's eyes flashed sharp as broken glass. "Don't ask questions you're too cowardly to hear the answers to. Lily, please." His voice cracked, raw with desperation. "I need to know. I have to know." Silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the soft hum of the overhead light. Finally, Lily's gaze dropped to the boy's sleeping face. She brushed a gentle hand across his cheek. "Noah," she whispered, the name like a knife in Ethan's chest. "His name is Noah Shaw." Ethan staggered back, his world tilting. The name, his name, wrapped around the child like a secret he had never deserved. Guilt crashed over him, a tidal wave of memories and regrets. The night he left, the calls he never made, the letters he never wrote, each one a betrayal. "I'm sorry," he choked out, tears burning his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Lily. I was a coward. I let him down. I let you both down." Lily's jaw tightened, her eyes cold and unyielding. "Sorry doesn't change what you did. Sorry doesn't feed him or keep him warm at night." Her voice broke for a moment, but she caught herself standing taller. "I built a life for him, a life without you. I won't let you walk back in now and ruin that." Ethan's hands trembled. "I want to help. Please, I'll do anything." Her laugh was brittle. "Help? You left us, Ethan. You let your father's threats scare you away. You let me think we meant nothing." He reached for her, but she pulled back, clutching Noah to her chest like a shield. "Stay away from us. You've done enough damage." "Lily." His voice was a broken thing, pleading. "No," she snapped, tears glistening but refusing to fall. "No more, Ethan. You made your choice, now live with it." She turned, the corridor stretching out before her like an escape route. Her silhouette, so strong, so fragile, faded into the darkness. Ethan stood alone, heart pounding in his ears. Noah's name echoed in his mind, a single truth he could no longer outrun. He thought of Caroline waiting in the ballroom, the bright future he had promised. But Noah's face, that tiny sleeping face, had shattered all illusions. He knew then that he could not let go, because some ghosts refused to stay buried, and some truths refused to be silenced. The ballroom pulsed with music and laughter, the band's melody weaving between clinking glasses and polite applause. Ethan moved among the guests like a ghost, his smile a brittle mask stretched too thin. Caroline's father raised his glass in a toast, beaming with pride at the union of two powerful families. Ethan clinked his glass with everyone else, his thoughts miles away. Noah Shaw. The name pounded in his head like a hammer, relentless and accusing. Every time he saw Caroline's bright smile, every time someone congratulated him on his fairy tale wedding, he felt a little more like a fraud. His heart felt too big for his chest, swollen with guilt and fear. Lily's words haunted him. "You made your choice. Now live with it." He spotted her slipping away near the back exit, Noah's small hand wrapped in hers. The boy's eyes were wide with questions only a father should have answered. Ethan's feet moved before his mind could catch up. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp, the city skyline a jagged crown of steel and glass. Lily stood near the curb, waiting for a cab, her posture tense, every inch of her ready to fight or flee. "Lily!" Ethan called, his voice ragged. She turned, her expression hardening the instant she saw him. "Go back inside, Ethan. Enjoy your party." "I can't," he said, stepping closer. "I need to know the truth, all of it." She shook her head, exhaustion and fury mixing in her eyes. "What truth do you think you deserve?" He reached out, but she recoiled as though his touch might burn her. "Please," he whispered. "I need to know why you left without a word. Why Why you never told me about Noah? Her jaw clenched. Because your father made sure I couldn't. The words hit him like a slap. What? She glanced at Noah, who tugged at her coat, oblivious to the war raging in his mother's heart. He came to my apartment the night you left, she said, voice shaking. He offered me money to disappear, money to start over somewhere far away. He said it was the best thing for everyone. Ethan's stomach dropped. He paid you off, he murmured, his father's voice suddenly echoing in his mind. You're a Shaw. Protect the family name. He threatened me, Ethan, Lily continued, eyes brimming with tears she refused to shed. Said he'd ruin my life. Take Noah from me if I stayed. I was alone, pregnant, terrified. Ethan's vision blurred, rage and shame battling for control. I didn't know, he said, voice cracking. I swear to God I didn't know. Lily's stare was cold, unyielding. Then maybe you were just too busy building your empire to notice. A car pulled up, headlights washing them in harsh white. She opened the door and guided Noah inside. Before closing it, she looked back at Ethan, her voice a broken whisper. This is why I never came back, because some debts can never be repaid. The door shut, and the car pulled away, leaving Ethan on the curb, staring at his reflection in the rain-slicked street. Behind him, laughter spilled from the ballroom, a celebration built on secrets and betrayal, and Ethan knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The rain had turned to a misty drizzle by the time Ethan reached the hospital. The city lights blurred through the windshield, each one a smudged reminder of everything he had built and everything he had destroyed. He took the elevator to the top floor, the private wing where his father lay dying of congestive heart failure. The hallway smelled of antiseptic and finality, and the hush of the place made every step echo in his chest. He paused at the door, hand hovering over the handle. Memories flooded him, his father's stern lectures, the endless demands to be strong, to never show weakness. You're a Shaw, Ethan. We are built from steel and ambition. He pushed the door open. The room was dim, the only light coming from the small lamp beside the bed. His father lay propped up by crisp white pillows, an oxygen tube snaking into his nose. Even now, the old man's eyes were sharp, calculating, alive with a cold intensity that had always made Ethan's stomach tighten. Son, his father rasped, voice thin but commanding. Didn't expect to see you tonight. Shouldn't you be at your wedding? Ethan ignored the question, stepping closer until he could see every deep line etched into his father's face. I need answers, he said, his voice low, trembling with fury. About Lily, about Noah. His father's mouth twitched, the ghost of a smirk. Ah, that girl. I wondered when you'd come asking. Ethan's fists clenched. You paid her to disappear. You threatened her. She was pregnant, with my son, and you made her believe she was alone. A dry cough rattled from his father's chest. I did what had to be done, he said, voice steady, eyes hard. You were too busy chasing your precious ideals to protect the family. So I stepped in. Protect the family? Ethan's voice rose, sharp and broken. You destroyed it. You destroyed me. You destroyed her. And you threatened a woman, carrying your grandson. His father's eyes narrowed, the old iron will gleaming in his gaze. Do you think the Shaw legacy was built on softness, Ethan? On sentiment? I did what every powerful man does. I protected what matters. Ethan felt something crack inside him, a splintering of the last fragile bond he had with the man who had raised him. You didn't protect anything. You ruined everything. You turned me into a man I don't even recognize. His father coughed again, a thin smile twisting his lips. If you're looking for an apology, you'll die waiting. I built an empire, and empires are not built on mercy. They're built on sacrifice. The words hit Ethan like a slap. He took a step back, his father's face swimming in tears he refused to let fall. I loved her, Ethan whispered, his voice raw. I loved her, and I let you rip her from my life. And now, I have a son I barely know. A son who might hate me because of you. His father's gaze was unflinching. Then that's your burden to bear. I did my part. Ethan shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. No, you did your part, all right. You taught me how to build walls, how to sacrifice everything for success. But you forgot to teach me how to be human. His father's eyes fluttered closed, a deep exhale rattling from his chest. Weakness will be your undoing, he muttered. Ethan turned, the weight of generations pressing on his shoulders. He walked out of the room, leaving the empire and its dying king behind. But in the hallway, a single thought clung to him like a shadow. Noah. Lily. The pieces of himself he had almost lost. And as he stepped into the rain, he knew that some legacies were worth breaking. The rain had turned into a relentless drizzle by the time Ethan made it back to the Waldorf. His clothes clung to his skin, heavy with the weight of his own guilt. The grand ballroom had emptied out, save for a few staff cleaning up scattered confetti and abandoned glasses. He found Caroline alone in the bridal suite, her delicate wedding gown draped over a chair like a ghost waiting to be worn. She stood by the window, arms folded across her chest, staring out at the rain-soaked city. "Ethan," she said without turning, her voice brittle. "Where have you been?" He hesitated, his reflection in the mirror pale and gaunt. "I had to. I needed to." She spun to face him, her eyes sharp and wounded. "You've been avoiding me all night. I saw you slip out during the cake cutting, and earlier you looked like you'd seen a ghost. What's going on?" He swallowed hard, his heart hammering. The walls he'd spent years building felt like they were crumbling, piece by piece. "Caroline, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you from the beginning." She tilted her head, her voice low. "What is it, Ethan? What could possibly be so important that you're acting like a stranger on our wedding night?" He took a breath, the words catching in his throat. 3 years ago, before I met you, I was engaged. Her name was Lily. I left her. I left her when she told me she was pregnant. I was young, scared, and..." Her eyes widened, horror dawning. "Pregnant?" He nodded, shame searing his chest. "Yes, I didn't know what to do. My father, he found out. He paid her off, threatened her. He made her disappear. And I let it happen. I let it happen because I was weak." Caroline staggered, back a step, her hand trembling against the windowsill. You left a woman pregnant? And you never told me? You let me plan a life with you knowing this?" Tears blurred his vision. "I didn't know how to fix it. I thought I could bury it, start over. But she showed up tonight, Caroline. She has a son. My son." The silence between them yawned like a chasm. Caroline's voice was barely a whisper, trembling with betrayal. "You have a child, and you never told me." Ethan reached for her, desperation lacing his voice. "I swear to you I never meant to hurt you. I love you, Caroline. But the truth, I couldn't keep living this lie." She flinched at his touch, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You love me?" she spat, her voice sharp as glass. "You love me, but you left a woman alone to raise your child? You let your father threaten her? You let him..." Her voice cracked. "You're no better than him." His chest tightened, every word a blade. "Caroline, please. I need you to understand. I'm not that man anymore. I want to make it right. I want to be the man you deserve." She shook her head, the pain in her eyes deeper than any wound he had ever known. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Her fingers fumbled at her engagement ring, twisting it off with trembling hands. She held it out to him, her voice a broken whisper. "I can't marry you, Ethan. I can't build a life on lies and betrayal." The ring clattered onto the floor between them. She brushed past him, her gown a whisper in the dim room. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Ethan alone in the silence of his own shattered dreams. Outside, the rain fell harder. Inside, Ethan felt the weight of every choice he had ever made pressing down on him like a curse he could never escape. Though, Rain had given way to a soft, overcast gray by the time Ethan found them. He wandered the city for hours, driven by guilt and desperation, until he stumbled upon a small park tucked between rows of brownstones, a forgotten patch of green in a city of glass and steel. There, beneath the bare branches of an old oak, Lily sat on a worn bench, Noah beside her. The boy's legs swung idly as he clutched a battered toy car, lost in his own world. Lily's gaze rested on her son, every line in her face a testament to the battles she had fought to keep him safe. Ethan stood at the edge of the path, his heart in his throat. He wanted to run to them, to throw himself at her feet and beg forgiveness, but his feet felt anchored by every sin he had committed. He took a hesitant step forward, his voice trembling. "Lily." She turned, her expression unreadable. A fortress of calm built on years of survival. "Ethan," she said, her voice cool and even. "What are you doing here?" He swallowed, the words catching like thorns in his throat. "I needed to see you, both of you." Noah looked up then, his eyes the same deep green that once held Ethan's entire world. The boy's gaze was innocent, curious, unknowing. A pang of longing twisted in Ethan's chest. "I wanted to tell you," Ethan began, but his voice cracked under the weight of everything he had to say. "I'm so sorry, Lily, for everything, for leaving, for letting my father—" She held up a hand, silencing him. "Don't," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. "I don't need your apologies now." Her hand moved to Noah's shoulder, steady and protective. "He's my son, Ethan. Mine. I've raised him without you. I've given him everything I could." Ethan's eyes burned. "I know, and I hate myself for not being there, for letting him grow up without a father. I want to—" She shook her head, her jaw tightening. "Want to what? Make up for the years you missed? You can't, Ethan. Some things you can't fix with money or promises." Noah's eyes flicked between them, confusion clouding his innocent face. "Mommy, who's he?" Ethan's heart shattered. The question hung in the air like a knife. Lily took a breath, her voice steady as she spoke to her son. "He's someone from my past, sweetheart. Someone who made mistakes." Noah's small brow furrowed, his toy car clutched tightly in his hands. "Is he bad?" Ethan felt the tears spill then, unstoppable. He crouched down, eyes level with the boy. "No, buddy," he whispered, his voice raw. "Not bad, just someone who didn't know how to be brave." Noah blinked, innocence and confusion swirling in his gaze. Then he turned back to his mother, as if Ethan were a stranger. Lily's eyes met Ethan's, and in that gaze he saw every silent night she had spent alone, every tear she had shed in the dark. Her love for Noah was fierce and unbreakable, a shield he would never penetrate. Ethan stood, a hollow ache settling deep in his chest. "I wish I could change the past," he said, voice barely audible. She stood too, her eyes soft but resolute. "So do I. But we can't. We live with the choices we make." She took Noah's hand and together they turned away, leaving Ethan standing in the cold gray light. As they disappeared down the path, Noah glanced back over his shoulder, his eyes wide and searching. In that look, Ethan saw the man he could have been, and the father he would never be. Ethan stood alone in his father's office for the last time, the smell of leather and old money clinging to the air like a dying empire. Sunlight poured through the high windows, illuminating dust, motes that danced in the silence. The heavy oak desk, once the center of so many deals and betrayals, now felt like a relic of a life he no longer wanted. He ran his fingers along the edge, tracing the cracks worn by decades of power games and quiet threats. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "We protect the family at all costs." But at what cost, Ethan wondered, had that protection come? A stack of legal documents lay neatly on the desk, papers that would finalize the sale of his shares in Shaw Holdings, the empire his father had spent a lifetime building. An empire built on secrets, on silencing the vulnerable, on sacrifices Ethan could no longer live with. He signed his name at the bottom of each page, the pen trembling just once when he reached the final line. With each stroke, a piece of the man he'd been fell away. When the last signature was done, he closed the folder and exhaled, a breath he hadn't known he'd been holding. Outside, the city skyline stretched wide, a kingdom of glass and steel. But Ethan no longer saw it as a kingdom. He saw it as a battlefield, one that had left too many bodies in its wake. He thought of Lily, of the pain in her eyes as she walked away, of Noah's small face, searching for answers. Ethan could never give. The ghosts of the past would always haunt him, but he refused to let them define his future. He picked up his phone and called the lawyer he'd hired days before. "Transfer the funds," he said, his voice steady. "Every cent from the sale. I want the foundation up and running by the end of the month." The lawyer hesitated. "All of it, Mr. Shaw? That's a substantial—" "All of it," Ethan repeated, his tone leaving no room for doubt. He hung up before the lawyer could argue. The Foundation for the Forgotten, he had decided to call it. A place for women like Lily. Women who had been silenced, threatened, manipulated by men who believed power was their birthright. A place for survivors of systems that cared more about preserving legacies than protecting lives. It wouldn't bring Lily back to him, or make Noah call him Dad. But maybe in some small way it could honor the love he had destroyed and the innocence he had abandoned. Ethan left his father's office for the last time, his steps slow but certain. In the hallway, the portraits of Shaw patriarchs stared down at him, stoic, unyielding, their eyes full of the same cold ambition that had defined his life for too long. He paused before his father's portrait, searching for a sign of regret, a hint of remorse in the painted eyes. But there was nothing there, just the same hard stare that had shaped his destiny and broken so many others. He turned away. Outside, the afternoon sun had broken through the clouds, scattering light across the city streets. People bustled by, each carrying their own burdens, their own stories. Ethan felt lighter, though the scars remained. Some wounds, he knew, never fully healed. Some mistakes could never be undone, but choices could be made. New paths could be carved from the wreckage of the old. And as he walked into the light, Ethan resolved that his legacy would no longer be built on silence. It would be built on voices. Voices that would never be silenced again.